I can speak when you're asking questions domestically and internationally. I've been doing this for 45 years all over the world. I've lived in Asia for 8 years doing project finance and private placements, and I've worked with both renewable and fossil, so both power and fuels. So,
Hey Mark, can you hold the mic up?
yeah, so what I first wanted to do was to see how many, maybe a show of hands of how many people are working with projects in the renewable space. And
Nice.
and how many of those are electricity? How many of those are energy efficiency? How many are fuel? Okay. So, and how many of you are doing project financing regularly? Okay, so I think so for the benefit of everybody, since I'm a project finance lawyer and you're doing either a project finance or a corporate finance when you're doing these projects. If you're doing a corporate finance, it's a recourse-based finance, which means that you're going to have to put up a corporate guarantee and or a personal guarantee. And personal guarantees could be by many, if not all, of your investors. If you're doing a project finance, there's no guarantees. It's all based on, the liens are put on cash flowing contracts and they're put on the equipment of the project. So that kind of lays out the project finance area, which is what we're talking about. So it's a non-recourse finance. Secondly, when you're looking at these, you're looking at what's called a capital stack. And so in the capital stack, you've got debt and you've got equity and equity equivalents. So if you're doing a commercial project, you're going to be probably somewhere around 80-20 on a debt equity ratio to maybe 70-30, maybe probably not down so far to 60-40. So it'll probably be in that range, 70-30, 80-20. If you're into a first commercial, you're going to be down in anywhere from a 60-40 debt to equity to a 50-50 to a 40-60 in that range. And I do a lot of that kind of work, first commercial since 2008 when the market crashed. I'm sure you've heard of the Valley of Death. Well, my residence is right at the bottom of that place. So I'm helping people get across the chasm when they're developing a technology, getting their private placements in place, and then building a pilot, a demo, first commercial, and once that's done, then, and most of the times the banks won't do that, just about 99% of the time on a first commercial, they want to have a credit enhancement. And I can get into how we've been very creative with the credit enhancements, but to just continuing this introduction. So I thought I'd lay that out first. And this slide, which is busy, really lays out what are, I would say, 11 buckets of equity and equity equivalents, but I kind of cheated a little bit and put in some debt in there too. So if I had a pure debt model, that'd be the 12th one that I don't have on that slide. So when we're dealing with the project finance, we want to try to compress the equity side of the ledger as much as possible, the capital stack, so that you don't, and with non-dilutive funding, that's what I mean by an equity equivalent, so that you're not diluting your ownership interest. So you want to try to maximize as much debt as possible because you're going to get a better return, rate of return on your investment. But you also want to try to keep as much ownership interest. So, and I can get into that with Dave was going to ask me a question, so I can get into the different types of mechanisms we use there. But I just wanted to show you here with the check marks in those columns, what you're going to find at the corporate funding level, that's the holding company, more of a at the private placement end of it. And then at the project level, which we're talking about mostly here today, those are, the checks are in the boxes. There are the types of things you can rely on. And then I'm also telling you whether on the equity and equity equivalents, whether it's dilutive or non-dilutive. And some of these start out like different tax equity, like a new market tax credit will start out as dilutive, but after 7 years, it becomes non-dilutive. So your money stays in place, but the person who is around your neck diluting your ownership interest is gone unless negotiated a carried interest in the project. And so that's what I have here. So I also have given to Janine, and she can make those available, I would imagine, or if you give me a card after, I've got 4 slide decks. A couple of them are up to 100 slides, but it puts all the meat on the bones on this. And as I tell somebody, if there's $1 of non-dilutive funding, $1 of dilutive funding, and $1 of debt, it's in those slides. And if it's not in those slides on domestic and international projects, then it doesn't exist.
Great, thank you, Mark.